So I just got out of seeing Thor, and let's give you as non-spoilery as I can give it. If you enjoyed Ragnarok, if you enjoyed, that comedy that Taika Waititi has, then there's a good chance you're gonna like this one. There's a lot of moments in there that are very well done. The cinematography, strong. The visuals, great. And the final battle at the end of the third act is really good. Like, visually, it's stunning. It's one of them kind of ones that I would recommend seeing it in the cinema, because it feels like it's made for it. So if I have to keep it as non-spoilery as possible, I'd say go and see the movie. Go and see it for yourself. But if I had to be completely objective, well, not objective, just subjective, my own opinion, on how the movie plays out, I'm not a huge fan. And it perfectly sums up phase 4 to a T at the moment, where we're in this kind of situation where I feel like Marvel has gotten cocky and they can put out whatever and people will show up and just buy it hook, line and sinker, and it will automatically be deemed good. I start to think about the many avenues that this movie could have gone, and I'm thinking to myself, would people still be saying the same thing if the movie was put out in a different way? We're at this point now where a movie's quality is defined by some random TikToker doing a bunch of TikTok stuff rather than the actual movie itself. And oh, this moment's so iconic, oh, this character's so iconic. It's like, yeah, but that, like, when it's applied to every single movie or show, the meaning becomes redundant. It's like, as I said, no movie is a 10 out of 10, but 10 out of 10 is thrown around so much it doesn't mean anything anymore. In terms of, so spoilers ahead, in terms of, did I like the movie? Yeah, I liked it. Solid 6 out of 10. I actually enjoyed Kenobi more, mostly because the finale, but it's just, I think the way the movie plays out, it's literally like a Taika Waititi wet dream. Like, there's so much in this movie where I'm like, oh my god, like, do we need to have this particular thing here every 2 seconds? And dare I say it, Ragnarok is better. Now, I know for some people Ragnarok is top 5 in the MCU, or like one of their main Rolodex films, and that's great, but for me it has always fallen short and it's not felt good in comparison to like Civil War or Infinity War or something like that. But with the way that this movie plays out, I'm just like, oh my, like, I feel very 50-50 on it, and that's how I feel about this phase overall. Now, it may be a transitional point in the story, but that still doesn't excuse the fact that individually each movie just isn't landing, and all we're focusing on at the moment is as Marvel fans, is what we're setting up. And I don't like that, because when did the defining factor of a movie became what it set up, not what the actual movie was about? Spider-Man 2 set up Spider-Man 3. Does that mean Spider-Man 2 is, just good for setup? No, it's because it's a good ass movie. There's Top Gun, set up Top Gun Maverick with like Goose's death and Maverick's PTSD, for a potential sequel down the line, which no one ever thought would happen. It sets that up, but the movie in and of itself is still good. When did the defining factor of movies nowadays become cameos and setup? And I understand it's part of a bigger universe, and I get that, but it's not necessarily the bouncing back and forth of characters between movies and shows that's my problem. It's how it's being done, it's how they're used. And I feel like Gore was such a compelling villain that you had the minerals to make one of the best movies in the MCU in Thor 4. Like, you had one of the best formulas at your disposal. You had the story with Jane, like a really emotional story with her cancer and her situation of her dying. You had all that coming into play. Then you had the storyline of Gore losing, his love. That's what the theme of the movie was. It was love, and how they kind of run parallel to each other. But then it's cheapened by the fact that we're not able to invest in that emotion because there's a constant joke every 2 seconds. Like, there's a joke behind a joke. Like, it feels like the movie wasn't taking itself seriously and whatnot, and that's fine. Hell, the Meg, with a bloody megalodon, that didn't take itself seriously. But that movie was quite a bit of fun. It knew what it was. Fast and Furious, it knows what it is. It doesn't take itself too seriously, and it's a lot of fun. But with this, I felt like there's a limit of where you're insulting your audience just a bit, and if you're the kind of person that loves that kind of comedy, then chances are you're going to have a really great time with this movie. You will have a great time. And if this is the comedy that you prefer, then that's awesome. But for me personally, a lot of the jokes just didn't land, and it felt like the jokes were to cover up opportunities for good filmmaking, in my opinion. It felt like there was moments there that you could have had where the story was much more engaging and meaningful and connected, and it was just sacrificed for a joke or two, to cover up the fact of how many plot holes, or not necessarily plot holes, that's wrong wording, how many contrivances there were, or how many short sightings there were, or how many just situations where it just felt like they were doing the bare minimum again. And one thing that I don't necessarily like is the fact that we're in this era now in Marvel where they can put out whatever the fuck they want and people will just tune in, and yes, as I said, they could, as I've said in my recent streams, they could announce X-Men tomorrow. They could announce Fantastic Four. Fantastic Four's coming, obviously, but they could announce Blade's coming too. But they could announce whatever, and we'll still go and see it. And maybe Phase 5 will be better, but Phase 4 right now is the most forgettable phase out of the 4, and it just feels. And the reason I feel that way is because the movies, they're not going all in like they should. If No Way Home had the directing style of Thor Love and Thunder, when Aunt May is dying, Peter would have just picked her body up and thrown it at a police officer. That's the comedy that's in this kind of movie, and I feel like with Jane's storyline, you have a really emotional story there. You really have something strong, where there were moments where I got choked up. There were moments where Jane's story was so strong that I was like, man, they're actually going all in. This is great. Like, keep doing this. This is awesome. They made her quite a vulnerable character, quite green, quite someone you could invest in. And I was like, good, that's the character. That's what we like. That's great. But I feel like a disservice was done to Jane. It's like, because her emotional story was played for laughs, and it's like, maybe some people are into that, and then Korg's like got a Korg fiance that's called Dwayne, aka it's like a reference to The Rock. But it's just, it feels like a lot of it was just thrown in there just to be funny for the sake of being funny, and I feel very 50-50 on it, because that's basically how this whole phase has gone, besides No Way Home. But even then, if you go completely objective, yes, No Way Home is in the phase, but it's more so a Sony movie. A lot of the emotional beats of that story are centered around Sony projects. Yeah, Iron Man's influencing it, but other than that, it's Amazing Spider-Man and it's the Raimi trilogy. Then you've got Black Widow, which is a movie that should have came out like 10 years ago. And then the rest of it is just, it's like we're just on a theme park ride, And I don't want to be labeled as toxic or whatever. This is just how I feel, It just doesn't feel, there's not many movies in this phase or shows that I'm going to revisit. A lot of them just feel like they're here to come and go, and people will forget about. Like Stranger Things season 4 was better than probably every single MCU show. And Top Gun Maverick is better than every single Phase 4 movie besides No Way Home. And the only reason I say that is because No Way Home, I'm a Spidey fan, but if I wasn't a huge Marvel fan, dare I say it could even top that. Like, I'm throwing it out there. And I love No Way Home, but I feel like if you take No Way Home out of this phase, man, you lose a lot. It's like, I know phases have had movies that have defined them before, like Civil War and Infinity War and whatever, but at the same time there were still other good movies, and the fact that Frigga's death in Thor the Dark World was given so much care and love despite the movie being asinine, and then you look at Jane's story and you're like, man, I wish they did the same kind of treatment here, maybe bring back that score as she's dying, it's stuff like that. It's the little things, and it could have been such a powerful theme, that live in the moment, never take any moment for granted, always be strong, always be willing to push forward. And that's what I really hope they were gonna do. and they kind of did, but it was just undercut by all the jokes. I like that Heimdall has a son. That's cool. I do like that Heimdall returned. That's my boy. I like they brought Valhalla into the mix to show the afterlife of the gods, so that, you know, no one is truly dead. And I've already seen this one argument, oh, Jane's dead. You know, how can they use her going forward? Multiverse. That's the problem. That's the problem. No stakes there anymore. You just pluck a version out of the multiverse now. Like, you're taking away from the gravity of when that character exits, you know? I don't know. It's very iffy, but guys and girls, let me know your thoughts down below. I could sit here for hours talking about it, but I gotta go to work. But jump in the comment section down below, let me know your thoughts, and if you haven't seen it, I don't know why you watched up to this point, because I've already spoiled you half the movie. Well, I would say 3/4 of the movie, half is being generous. But yeah, very 50-50. In terms of a rating out of 10, I'd say a 6, you know? It's good, you know, it's good, and that's it. It's just good, you know? And I went into this movie expecting what I got, and I got triple that, so that should tell you all you need to know. But I'll see you in another video soon, folks. It's just phase 4, man. Man, I think Marvel's getting cocky. I really do. I think Marvel, you gotta stop this, because if I've seen it a million times where every company thinks they're the God's gift to Earth, and then someone comes along. Stop. Like, you're getting cocky with Star Wars, you're getting cocky with Marvel. You gotta stop it. You gotta stop it.